Okay, what's up guys, Alex here. Welcome back to another, I was about to say Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, but welcome to another Dragon Ball Legends video. And this post was actually made several days ago, but I thought that I should touch on it today. Just because the game has, it hasn't technically been released worldwide completely, but it is available in the US. I'm not certain if it is available in the UK. But there are ways to get it. Relatively easy. And there is actually an APK on the subreddit. I'm not too certain who is doing it, but big shout out to him. Honestly, gonna go ahead and just have a quick look because it should be on the front page. If we go over to... yeah, there we go. So, Verse Hell. Oh, that's pretty simple. So, big shout out to him for the APK. He updates it every single time that, you know, there is an update for the app. So... if you do want to download a game and it's not available in your country, then you should be able to find it pretty easily. I'm pretty certain that it's not available on iPhones yet, which is a bit of a shame, but soon, I would imagine, considering that it's basically being released like a month early everywhere. So go ahead and do that if you do have an Android device. So we have a re-roll tier list. You know, we have a strongest team, and I was... like, when I initially made my video going over all the sparking units and ranking them, like, that was just me talking about them on paper. Because on paper, units like Pan, they sound great. And then you have units like Piccolo that are kind of like, he's cool, but he doesn't necessarily have the damage backing him up. But when you actually use these characters, it's like, okay, this guy is clearly very, very good. So there are currently 5 sparking units in the game. You can definitely debate that Super Saiyan Goku is the easiest one to get, because you get him once you get to rank 20, and you can buy him as well. So, re-roll tier list. And again, big shout out to, I'm not gonna, yeah, sorry, the name is there. And he basically made this list, and it's just good to get multiple opinions on this, because obviously once you get multiple opinions, it's just the best way to come to a mutual agreement. So there are 5 sparking units in the game, and when it comes to the tier list now, I feel like the best units in the game are Piccolo. Okay, I believe that I kind of want to say that Goku is better than the Vegeta, but from what I've read here right now is that Vegeta is slightly better than the Goku. But one thing that you can kind of take into account is that because Goku is kind of easier to obtain, getting his Z ability up with the limit breaking could potentially be something that you take into account. But I could be wrong. To be honest, to be completely honest, after using both Goku and Vegeta, the Vegeta does seem to be a bit stronger. So, let's talk about this real quick. When it comes to this particular list, he would give Vegeta a slight edge in the tier list over Piccolo due to his damage being ridiculous. And like I just mentioned, I have personally used the Vegeta, I believe. I think I may have one dupe in him. And that's a fair analysis. I think it's fair to say that both Piccolo and Vegeta are in a class of their own for the most part. It's not to say that the other units are bad in comparison, but there are certain things that definitely do give him the edge over the other units in the game right now. And personally, I think that Piccolo is just as important as Vegeta, because the amount of utility that Piccolo has in keeping your guys alive is crazy. And the moment you lose the Piccolo, you start to see how vulnerable your units actually are. So, Pikkon is first in the A tier due to having such well-rounded stats. I can completely agree with that. Goku also joins Pikkon in the A tier list. He also has rounded stats with a main ability that gives him a 20 energy Kamehameha, which of course is his main ability allows him to draw a card that, you know, costs 20 damage or 20 ki, and it does a decent amount of damage. And it, like it says here, that can swing games. Pan, now we have Pan, who I initially thought was going to be the best unit in the game because of her ability. But once you actually get into the game and use her for yourself, she isn't that great. On paper, she sounds great, but once you actually use her, she isn't necessarily all that. So she falls short in comparison to some of the other units. Like, the ability to get ki back, because of how aggressive the game is, you just don't have time to utilize that ability to its, to its full extent, which is a bit of a shame because it was a cool ability. I thought that she was easily going to be like one of the best units in the game without a doubt, but unfortunately that she is right at the bottom right now. I can definitely agree with this list. I think that the Goku, see, but then you have Pikon's ability that adds ki to, or it increases the amount of ki required to use certain cards, so I think that the Pikon and Goku is debatable. I think that's very debatable, because are you gonna, I feel like overall Pikon may be better just because of his ability to increase the amount of ki required to use a card. Because if you can't use a card, like let's say you used a Vanish, right, and you can't switch out to one of the other characters to use your Vanish again, you don't have the necessary amount of ki to counteract a ki barrage, for example. Because vanishing is a very important part of the game, and if you don't have a Vanish, and if you can't switch out to another unit that can vanish, you are extremely vulnerable. And if you can't counteract with your own card, you're going to take a lot of hits, right? So I can kind of agree with this list so far. I think that Vegeta and Piccolo are honestly right at the top. And then you have Goku and Pikon right below them. And it's not to say that they aren't on the same level, right? But they aren't necessarily that far behind. And to be honest, it's a bit of a shame that this game is kind of focused massively on the sparking units, because if you go back to the beta, it was, I wouldn't necessarily say perfect, but it did seem a lot more balanced because there were, only hero units. And the fact that you can easily tell that hero units are not going to compete with sparking units is a bit of a shame. And because you are limited to 3 characters, it's just kind of like, I don't know, maybe if you had the option to use a few more characters, then yeah, you could implement a few heroes here and there, or maybe even extremes, but because you're limited to 3, it's like, doesn't necessarily work the way that you want it to. But when it comes to rerolls, the setup that you do want to go for is Vegeta and Pikon, or Piccolo and Pikon. Both are great options, but as it says right here, quantity over quality. So there you go. Now the strongest team, the team that I personally use, is Goku, Vegeta, and the Piccolo. Like the Goku and Vegeta have a ton of synergy, and it just works perfectly. And you can put the Pikon here and there to counteract the Vegeta, but in my experience, when Goku is up against Pikon, he's a complete powerhouse. Having a type advantage and just having the ability to use that Rising Rush, it's not even a Rising Rush, to use the, I think they call it Dragon Fist for whatever reason, to use an ability that does a ton of damage for just 20 ki is an easy counter for the Piccolo. And there aren't many units in the game that can honestly counter the Goku, apart from, I believe it's the extreme agility, well, extreme, yeah, he is technically blue, so the extreme agility Goku that you get at the start of the game. He's a good counter for the Super Saiyan Goku. Pan is decent as well, but there isn't necessarily that much that she provides apart from the type advantage. So I would say, and the person that made us this as well, did in fact say that the best team, or the potentially the best team in the game right now, is Goku, Vegeta, and the Piccolo. Another thing that he mentions here is obviously Pikon's ability to raise cards, and counters Pan's ability to increase the energy recovery over time. That's cool and all, but I personally think that, like I said, because of the state that the game is in right now, with vanishing being such an important factor, you want to be able to deal as much damage as possible and tank as much as you can in return with Piccolo. And I was planning on making a video on this, but a potentially good replacement for the Piccolo is actually the Krillin. But unfortunately, because he is a hero unit, he does have his disadvantages. And obviously his stats aren't going to be as high. But he cuts damage by 30%, and he does heal up himself. Obviously, it would be way better if he healed up your allies, but it's still a somewhat decent replacement. And one thing that I did mention in one of my previous videos is that your sub units are very important, the units that you have in your squad, because you can have up to 6, right? And the other 3 do have the abilities that count towards your main 3. So when you're making a team, having units that support your main squad is going to be extremely important. Like the Blue Goku, the extreme one, he is a good option. Shallot is a great bench player as well, as mentioned here, because he gives a health increase to Saiyans, if I'm not mistaken. Now, when it comes to PvP, I think this is like a whole other beast. For the most part, the things that I did want to mention in this particular video is just the best possible teams, what you should be re-rolling for at this time in the game. I think everyone has an understanding right now of who the best units in the game are. Like I said, on paper, at the start, Pantene great, Pikkon is another great unit, but he kind of doesn't necessarily have the it factor that the other units have. He's better than Super Saiyan Goku for the most part, I want to say, but Goku's ability to deal damage in like such a, not I want to say a short period of time, but just his ability to essentially cut off Pikkon is one of the things that could make Goku a bit better than the Pikkon in certain situations. If your opponent isn't running Pikkon, then Goku may, I wouldn't say struggle, but he may not necessarily have the uses that he would have against a unit like the Pikkon. But still, I think that's pretty much the list for now. I do believe we are going to get some new sparking units in the future. I believe Super Saiyan for Goku was in the database for the beta, but I doubt it's going to come anytime soon. Final Form Frieza, I think we may be getting a new Shallot. It's a bit of a shame that Shallot sucks, because as the main character of the game, you'd kind of expect him to be pretty decent, but I think that's pretty much it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you have any of these units? I mean, if you have, to be honest, if you have the Piccolo and then the Goku and the Pikkon, you have a decent setup. The Vegeta is very good, but I feel like you can kind of make do with the Goku and Pikkon, if that makes any sense, because you have the Pikkon to counter the Vegeta, right? So it kind of works out. I feel like as long as you have the Piccolo or the Vegeta, you're at a great start. But I feel like the Piccolo, I don't know what it is, but in terms of usefulness, I just feel like the Piccolo provides a bit more, you know, and just he kind of makes the whole team work out extremely well together. Keeps your harder hitter alive, heals them up, and can just cut the damage. So, like I said, let me know your thoughts. A bit of a different video. I may do gameplay relatively soon, but I don't want to just do PvP videos repetitively, right? So, again, like I said, let me know your thoughts. Hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you all in the next one.